Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 1 Minute Breakdowns, where we break down each and every fight on the upcoming UFC card within a minute to 2 minutes. This weekend, we have Valentina Shevchenko, the return of Valentina Shevchenko, going up against Alexa Grasso. This is their second meeting between each other. First matchup, Alexa Grasso was losing the match up until the fourth round, where Valentina threw this spinning kick, was a little bit lazy to get back into position, got her back taken, and Alexa Grasso, plus 650 underdog, cashes in and wins via rear naked choke. Um, this time around, there's a lot more implications, and I think it's going to be an entirely different fight. So excited to break these fights down for you guys. And first and foremost, if you haven't already, please drop a comment, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're inching closer to the 400 subscriber mark, so we're gaining some traction and starting to grow a little bit more day by day, week by week. And I'm looking forward to providing as much quality content as I can. But without further ado, as always, comment your predictions for each fight as I'm breaking them down. And now, I think it's time we start with the first fight of the night. We have Josephine Knudsen going up against Marnik Mann, both girls making their UFC debuts. Josephine Knudsen coming off of the Contender Series a couple weeks ago. She is 27 years old, will be the younger fighter by 3 years. Will have a height advantage of 3 inches at 5'3", and will be at a 4-inch reach disadvantage here. She's training out of All Stars Training Center in Sweden, and then Marnik Mann is training out of Montana Mixed Martial Arts. We have a huge favorite in Josephine Knudsen in this fight, and we have a lot of huge favorites on this card in general. Josephine Knudsen, I think, uh, probably is the safest bet on this card. I mean, you can't bet the money line, no way. But it's very hard for me to see Marnik Mann, a girl who was losing to some very low level competition, until she ends up finding a finish. Um, Going up against Josephine Knudsen, who, yeah, her Contender Series fight was not the best in terms of quality value, but she did go out there. She did put up a fight. She did tend to gas out just a little bit in that third round, but in the first two, she was laying it on her. And the striking looked good. The cage control looked amazing. I would just love to see a little bit more takedowns being mixed in here. The only way I really see Marnik Mann winning this fight if she gets taking takedowns of her own and some control time, but I highly doubt it. I think Josephine Knudsen should go out there and probably finish Marnik Mann late in the fight, late second or third round is my prediction here. But yeah, Knudsen by knockout. Second fight, we have Charlie Campbell making his UFC debut against Alex Reyes. And guys, before I break this one down, Alex Reyes has been out and has not fought for 6 years, going on 7. That is the by far the longest layoff I've ever seen when taping fights, when researching fights. But Charlie Campbell, we all know him for his loss against Chris Duncan in the Contender Series, where he was losing all the way up until he was winning all the way up until he was losing. Flip the order there. But let's talk about the numbers here. Charlie Campbell, the younger fighter by 8 years at 28 years old. He'll be the taller fighter by 1 inch at 6 foot, and then he'll be at a 1 inch reach disadvantage at 72 inches in reach. He's training out of Longo and Weidman MMA. Sarah Longo boys coming in, and Alex Reyes training out of Cage Combat Academy. Yeah, Charlie Campbell in that fight against Chris Duncan, he had him dead to rights twice. Could have had the knockout, and then Chris Duncan out of nowhere lands a straight right out of hell and completely sleeps Charlie Campbell. And when I say slept him, it was a clean knockout, and you don't really see those all that often. So not the best look. His striking defense is not good. This guy Charlie Campbell is a really good striker, but his striking defense needs much improvement. And as a minus 500 favorite, you kind of are going to sweat this one a little bit if you try to put him in some parlays. Alex Reyes, though, is the same, but without the striking offense acumen. He's a guy that he said himself, either I'm going to go out there and kill this guy or he's going to kill me. Does not have a regard for his chin. He will go out there and try and just destroy his opponent. And if not, he's going to get destroyed. We've seen him get knocked down multiple times in the first round. And yeah, I just see that sorry, I keep saying Chris Campbell. It's Charlie Campbell. I just love that Chris Duncan fight so much. I just think Charlie Campbell gets this done in the first round more often than not via knockout. But minus 500 indication, minus 102 indication on the round one KO. I mean, it's not really a surprise that I'm saying these things. But yeah, Charlie Campbell by knockout. Next up, we have a highly debated fight here in the women's flyweight division between Tracy Cortez again and Jasmine Jasudavicius. Tracy Cortez is going to be the younger fighter by 5 years at 29 years old. She'll be the shorter fighter at 5'5" by 2 inches, and she'll be at a 2.5 inch reach disadvantage here at 65.5 inches in reach. Fighting out of Fight Ready MMA, but she also has been training at the Pitbull Boys gym in Brazil for a little bit for this camp. Jasmine's fighting out of Niagara Top Team as always. This fight, I've seen a lot of very hotly debated takes on either side on Twitter or on X, whatever you guys call it. Tracy Cortez, very dominant wrestler, but can be overpowered at times. Striking is not the best. She does have heart. She does have good cardio, but I just feel like in this fight she's going to get out physicaled by Jasmine, who has slowly been creeping up the rankings and has been putting in some serious work at the gym. And every time I talk to a fighter or interview a fighter, they tell me about this girl's work ethic and how much she's in the gym working and improving on her skills. And I just like how physical Jasmine is in the cage. She imposes her game onto her opponent, and if they can't handle it, they will crumble. In the striking, she's not the best, but also serviceable. Pumps out the jab and really takes it to her opponent. I think in this fight, it's going to be razor close, probably 1-1 going into the third round. And I just think Jasmine Jasudavicius has the toughness to go out there in that third round and put a stamp on a fight and win a 29-28 unanimous decision. Moving on, we have Edgar Chairez going up against Daniel Lacerda. Edgar Chairez is a minus 225 favorite as per Tapology, but I know he's floating around the minus 240s. He will be, both fighters are 27, and he will be the taller fighter by 1 inch at 5'7", and he'll have a 2-inch reach advantage at 72 inches of reach. Fighting out of the Entram gym in Mexico, and Daniel Lacerda fighting out of Shoot Box, Diego Lima, the original one. So we know Daniel Lacerda is 0-4 in his last 4, and we all ask ourselves, why is the UFC bringing this guy back? And this guy's just a very entertaining fighter. I mean, even though he's losing, he's putting on wars, and it's always fun to watch. Edgar Chairez, I think they're just throwing him a favor in this fight. Not saying Lacerda doesn't have the skills to win this matchup, but I think taking that Tatsuro Taira fight on short notice is was a favor to the UFC, and I think they're giving him one back here. Edgar Chairez, I really like this guy's striking. He is quite durable himself, but does leave openings in the striking where I think when he starts to hit the top 15, top 10, he might face some difficulty there just because of his striking defense. But in this matchup, Daniel Lacerda throws a lot of winging shots, and I think he could get out of the way of him. Edgar Chairez uses a lot of tools, has a nasty leg kick game, and throws straight down the pipe, which if a couple of those land on Lacerda, I think Lacerda gets knocked out pretty early here. So my prediction in this fight is Edgar Chairez, and I think he should be a bigger favorite than what the line indicates at the moment. All right, next up, we have Roman Kopylov going up against Josh Fremd. Roman Kopylov is the older fighter by 3 years. He will be the shorter fighter by 4 inches at 6 foot, and he will be at a 1-inch reach disadvantage at 75 inches in reach. He's training in Dagestan, but there's no gym listed. And Josh Fremd is training out of All American MMA Academy, also Factory X. So we see another huge favorite here in Roman Kopylov, already soaring past the minus 400s in this fight. Josh Fremd is a short notice replacement here, or fighting on short notice, I believe. I don't think it's a replacement. But Kopylov, I think he possesses all the tools in the striking game to knock Josh Fremd out. Josh Fremd was getting hit by Jamie Pickett in that last fight, and I'm not going to overrate that performance because he could have just been feeling off, and I know the weight cut was really bad for him. But when you look at the striking of Roman Kopylov, he pumps out the jab, he's throwing straight, and I think he's going to be able to defend the wrestling. And he's shown some wrestling chops in his Instagram, and since he's been training in Dagestan with the Dagestani wrestling style, I think he'll be fine on the mat here. The only way I think Josh Fremd can pose some danger in this fight is if he gets Roman Kopylov off his back and hunts some submissions, because off of his back, Roman Kopylov has shown time and time again to be, I'm not going to say a fish, but he's shown some incompetency when he is off of his back playing jiu-jitsu. So that's the only way I could see Josh Fremd winning this fight. So I would take a stab at the submission line for Josh Fremd. Other than that, I think Roman Kopylov probably knocks him out in the second round. Probably a clean knockout. This guy carries very, very heavy power. And although his striking defense isn't the best, last time out he fought Claudio Ribeiro, who himself is not the best striker, but carries a lot of power, and that power will shake you in the first round. So probably a bad reaction to it. But yeah, Kopylov should be fine. Next up, we have another big favorite, and you're going to hear me say that a lot before these fights. We have another big favorite. Oops, we got Evan in the chat. Shout out my guy Evan. It's all good, my brother. I know a lot of people are busy this Friday night watching some regionals, so no shame in the game. But next up, we have Lupita Godinez going up against Elise Reed. The both fighters are 30 years old. Lupita Godinez is a shorter fighter at 5'2" and will be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage at 61 inches of reach. Training out of Titan MMA, but also training at Entram Gym with the likes of Alexa Grasso. And then kickside martial arts for Elise Reed. This is a very lopsided matchup if Lupita Godinez decides to wrestle. And when I mean very lopsided, I mean this fight is not even close. Like, she should be a -1,000. If she wrestles in this fight, I think she gets an early finish or a finish whenever she just chooses to do so, because Elise Reed off of her back has proven time and time again in multiple fights now in the UFC to be a fish. This is a fish off of her back, with all due respect. Has not shown competency and has not shown any improvements in her ground game at all. And Lupita, when she was wrestling actively in her fights, she was finding a lot of success against these girls who were decent wrestlers. In her last couple of fights, has shown the improvement in the striking realm as well. Very fast hands and sets up her combos well. But I just think that if she really wants the path of least resistance here, she will go to the wrestling and she'll find a submission or ground and pound finish early and often. So Lupita Godinez is probably one of my most confident parlay pieces on this whole card. Next up, we have Fernando Padilla going up against Kyle Nelson. Padilla making his second fight, or I was going to say debut, but he's returning for his second fight in the UFC. He is 6'1". Kyle Nelson is 5'11". 2-inch reach advantage there for Padilla, and he'll have a 5-inch reach advantage. He'll also be the younger fighter by 6 years at 26 years old. Fernando Padilla is training out of Irvine with Carla Esparza at her gym. I'm forgetting the name. And Kyle Nelson is training out of the House of Champions MMA and Muskoka Kickboxing. So here's a couple of things I don't like about Padilla. I don't like his striking defense. And we saw in that first fight against Julian Erosa, he was getting tagged up himself, but showed that he throws straight and has some power. But the thing is, as the fight carries on, how does that power translate? We have yet to be, like, we haven't seen that in the tape all that often. Cardio seems to check out when it looks at the regional side, but when you're throwing as heavy as he was against Julian Erosa with that kind of volume, it's gonna catch up to you, and your cardio is gonna get hindered. And against a guy like Kyle Nelson, who, yeah, has not shown the best results in the UFC, but has proved a lot of people wrong, has been durable, and has fought some really close decisions. The guy, I like his durability. I like that he can go to the wrestling here, and he has some power in those hands if he wants to let him go in the first round. If Padilla does not cover up his face in the first round and Kyle Nelson lands a couple of clean straight rights, I think he could put this guy out. And at this plus 206 underdog price on Kyle Nelson, I am very tempted to take it. But yeah, I am not 100% sure yet. So yeah, for me, the pick is Kyle Nelson here all day. Next up, we have Daniel Zellhuber going up against Christos Giagos. Daniel Zellhuber is the younger fighter by 9 years at 24 years old. He will be the taller fighter by 3 inches at 6'1", and will have a 5.5-inch reach advantage at 77 inches of reach, training out of Extreme Couture, and Giagos training out of Black House MMA. I think we have another lopsided matchup here where Daniel Zellhuber is the much, much better striker. Sure, Christos Giagos carries a lot of power, but he wings his shots a lot, and I think Zellhuber's range alone is going to be able to find him success in dodging these shots. And when it comes to the ground game, yeah, Giagos has the advantage there, but his cardio probably does not hold up into the later rounds. And I just think Zellhuber probably cracks him within the first or second round here with his stray shots. Iago's striking defense is not anything to harp about necessarily, and I just don't think this guy is. I think the UFC is trying to put spotlight on Daniel Zellhuber. Basically, I know in his first fight against Trey Ogden, he laid an egg. But talking to a bunch of fighters when I'm interviewing them, they tell me that Trey Ogden is one of the most frustrating people to fight just because he figures out your game plan and he fights you in an awkward style to where you really don't know how to execute upon it, whether it's the grappling or whether it's the striking. But then he showed in the fight against Lando Venata that he rebounded really well and the striking was crisp. He showed that he had a chin and he ate a bunch of shots from Lando as well. Could have finished that fight early, but IQ will come a long way. He's only 24. But yeah, with all that being said, I like Daniel Zellhuber in this fight to get it done inside the distance. Next up, we have a fan favorite and another big favorite, Raul Rosas Jr. going up against Alaska FC's own Terrence Mitchell. And yeah, Raul Rosas Jr. is the youngest fighter on the roster, I believe, still at 18 years old. He will be the younger fighter by 15 years. He'll be the shorter fighter by an inch and at 5'9", and then we don't have reach metrics on Terrence Mitchell, but 67 inches of reach for Rosas. I think Mitchell is a longer fighter in this matchup. Ay. Terrence Mitchell is not that decent of a grappler or a wrestler, and I think Raul Rosas is just going to be able to take him down in the first round and submit him. Now, do I want you to lay that price? No. That's long-term a negative EV bet, and even if you get it at minus 105, it's still not worth it. Although this bet probably hits. I'm not going to tell you that it's not going to hit. I think it hits at a very high clip, but you just don't want to ever lay these chalked round one method props. Like, that's too specific, even though everything looks like it's crystal clear in this matchup. Sure, Terrence Mitchell, I think he's tough. I think he could survive maybe the first round possibly. Like, you can dodge the first round's props and take a flyer on the second round submission and second round KO plus 700 or plus 800 and then plus 1800 for the KO in round two. You're much better off, and at least if you really want to stake in the fight, go ahead and bet that. But for me, this is a pass, but I do think Raul Rosas gets back on track here after a loss that a lot of people somewhat expected. My guy Sebas, thank you so much for hopping on. And as always, you can rewatch it. You can do whatever you want. This is valuable information that I'm always happy to share. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate your support. Co-main event, we have Kevin Holland going up against Jack Della Maddalena. Kevin Holland is the underdog in this fight. We have Kevin Holland at 30 years old, older fighter by 3 years. He'll be at a 4-inch height advantage here at 6'3", and he will have 8 inches in reach. 8 inches in reach on Jack Della Maddalena, 81 inches. We have a couple of things to go over in this fight. So, Jack Della Maddalena being a favorite against Kevin Holland in 2023, when you look at the fighters he has faced compared to the fighters that Kevin Holland has faced, and strength of schedule is all over the Holland side here. That's number one. Jack Della Maddalena showed in his last fight that he can gas when pushed at that heavy pace in the grappling by Basil Hafez. He was gassed out in that third round and towards the end of the second, but he recovered nice and finished fine. Kevin Holland, excellent cardio. longer fighter. I think Kevin Holland is probably the most powerful fighter that Jack Della has ever faced. But the one thing that people are missing here is Kevin Holland is probably the only fighter that Jack Della is going to face that throws straight punches, ladies and gentlemen. You look at Jack Della Maddalena's history and Basil Hafez, primarily a wrestler who wings shots across. He does not throw straight. Randy Brown, that fight ended too quick and also wing shots. Danny Roberts does not throw any shots. Ramazan Emeev, the guy came in with a huge freaking bruise on one of his sides with the ribs. And once he got taken down, he just looked like it was done. The one liver punch there, he's over. Pete Rodriguez, wing shots. You kind of get my drift here. Kevin Holland's going to be the first person that throws straight against Jack Della Maddalena, and I just think that Kevin Holland's right cross is going to land here at will and probably knock Jack Della Maddalena out. I think he's the better striker of the two in terms of overall striking, whether it's kickboxing, Muay Thai, and boxing. In the pocket, Jack Della is going to be much better. That's if he can get it up close. But I always like to have that back pocket wrestling or submission grappling that Kevin Holland has, even though we probably know that he will not go for grappling and wrestling in this matchup because his IQ is not that good. If he does, though, this could look like a hindsight lopsided line. So yeah, give me Kevin Holland here. I haven't bet him yet, but probably will. My guy Easy, what's good? Thank you for showing up, and hopefully you're excited for these fights tomorrow, because I know I am. Last but not least, we have the main event. Alexa Grasso going up against Valentina Shevchenko. This is the rematch. Alexa Grasso is the champion. She is 5 years younger than Valentina at 30 years old. Her and Valentina are both 5'5", and she has a half-inch reach advantage here at 66 inches of reach. Fighting out of Lobo Gym MMA and Entrum, and Valentina fighting out of Tiger Muay Thai and all across the world, to be honest. She's getting training from a bunch of different gyms. So let's break down this fight. First fight, Valentina going into the fourth round is up 2-1 handedly. Has found multiple takedowns, has found success in the top game. And in the striking, sure, Alexa has had her moments. In round one, she seemed to have hurt Valentina just a little bit, which threw her off. But going into the fourth round, Valentina was up 2-1, and she was on the way to winning that fourth round before she threw that spinning kick. If it weren't for that spinning kick, the lazy spinning kick that led to the back take, I think Valentina Shevchenko was going to cruise her way into a decision win, a unanimous decision win. And then you look at the market standpoint here. Market price this fight, Valentina Shevchenko minus 700 and climbing all the way up to minus 1,000, minus 1,100 closing line last time out. Now we have a Valentina Shevchenko at minus 160 average market price. From minus 1,100 closing price last time out to minus 160. This is what I like to call a huge market overcorrection, and we don't see this all that often in MMA. It's similar to when a huge underdog cashes and then they become a huge favorite their next fight out. This is identical. And I'm not saying Alexa Grasso does not have a chance of winning this matchup, but I'm talking in the market standpoint, this is a spot where you have to take advantage of the price on Valentina Shevchenko, just in terms of pure logic and market overcorrection. In terms of skill for skill, I still think Valentina is going to be able to land the takedowns at will here. I don't think you can improve your takedown defense that quick. That's one thing. In the striking, I still think Valentina is the much better fighter here, even though maybe she has what's the word I'm looking for here? She has been dropping down in levels ever so slightly over her past 2 to 3 fights. And I think she has the better cardio in this matchup. So for me, I think it's a no-brainer here. You kind of have to bet on Valentina Shevchenko for all of those reasons. And I hope that clears some things up in terms of your own thought process or gives you another perspective here, because not a lot of people talk about market overcorrections or just market pricing. And that's just one thing that you just cannot price heavy enough. Same thing in the Padilla fight. I mean, Padilla was an underdog, not a huge underdog, but flipped to a big favorite all of a sudden. Similar thought process there. But yeah, I think Valentina Shevchenko wins this fight and new. And I think it's another like Amanda Nunes story where she gets the belt but doesn't retire necessarily, but she just loses the first matchup, wins the belt in the second. Yeah, guys, that is the end of the show. I hope you all enjoyed it. For those that are going to rewatch it, I really appreciate the support. And if you can, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends and family, whoever watches fights, whoever needs some guidance, or if you want it for some entertainment. But until next week, we will see y'all then. Good luck tomorrow, and let's make these bookies.